Welcome back. The week ahead continues. Let's take a look at some of those stories that made headlines on the newspaper front, the Sunday newspapers for that fact. We're going to be joined by Sbu Ngalwa, is the chairperson of Sanef, as well as Sbongakonke Shoba. He's the Sowetan editor. Well, a very good afternoon to the both of you. If you're celebrating Father's Day, happy Father's Day as well. Thank you for taking time out to chat with us here on the SABC at this hour.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you for your investment.
All right, Sbu, I'm going to start with you. I know you're joining us live from East London, and thank you for your time at this hour. I'm looking at the Sunday Times that has come to the fore, and we've got cops rack up 131 million bill for sick leave. So writes Thabo Mukone. I think the issue of accountability and oversight coming to the fore there, just that number, obviously, sending some alarm bells for police, but also for some of the protocols and mechanisms that are put in place to monitor it. I think there are also questions about whether, their policies ultimately also align with other, public sector, modus operandi. Talk to us a little bit more about some of the questions coming through on that story.
So this particular story, Lizzo, deals with the fact that the police have spent about 131 million on sick leave for about 618 police officers. Now, the issue here is that, I used to cover Parliament in 2007, and I can recall from portfolio committee meetings that was the issue even then.
Yeah.
That it has not been resolved tells you that something is very wrong with our police. We've got a broken system. So if you break it down, we've got about 180,000 members of the SAPS. And now you've got 618 people, and between them, you've got a bill of 131 million. So if you average that out, that's about 212,000 per police officer. Now that's excessive by any other standards. Now that story points to, as I say, an age-old problem within the police. Every year, every administration, you will have the portfolio committee raising concerns about so much money and the abuse of the sick leave system. And that, I see in that story that the portfolio committee is saying the Public Service Commission must investigate. The Public Service Commission cannot police sick leave. Sick leave should be managed at a station level. So that talks to a broken system and trying to get somebody else to solve your problems. And as I said, Lisa, this is not a new problem. I think there is serious work that needs to be done within the police, obviously notwithstanding the fact that there are serious issues of trauma and police who are dealing with a lot and not having enough support. So I think instead of just isolating the issue of the sick leave, which is excessive, there needs to be a holistic look into our police and our policing and also the support that they receive.
Well, to your point, it's not a new phenomenon. And if we're looking at best practices, but even just a response from the unions in terms of these reforms and what's needed, given how much time has lapsed and how much has been spent, any word on that front as well?
Yes, certainly. And the union obviously has an obligation here to defend its members. But the police management, government, you will have, it happens all the time. Members of parliament ask questions to the executive and they get responses, and we get alarmed and we're annoyed by how much money is being wasted. But I think that there has to be serious look into how the police are structured and also how they work, but also the issue of management. Because I feel that at a station level, that's an HR issue at a station level before it goes to a district. So if anybody ought to be handling their sick leave, it should be at least the station manager or their second in command. Because if you look at this story, Lisa, it also talks about the fact that these members, there's 618 of them, but what you find is that most of this sick leave comes a day after they've been off for 4 days. So it's like on a Monday. Any company that's got rules, it will tell you that on a Monday, if you are sick on a Monday, at least you probably need to bring a doctor's certificate, or if you are sick 2 days in consecutive days after a Monday, there are rules like that apply because people are prone to abuse sick leave. So there has to be some system that has been built in, because it's not like they have not monitored this. They don't have the statistics. The stats are there. So it's a matter of police management doing something about it to curb such abuses.
Yes, and there also is the issue of safety that obviously is affected and service delivery at large. And beyond the issue of management, just as we wrap up that story, what independent oversights also exist currently? How can that be reinforced? If we're imagining independent examinations of the medical conditions, especially if it is prolonged, do those exist? What more then could be done if we're speaking about reforms?
Look, I think the police management and also the unions would probably be a better place to say what support there is. But from what you will hear from lip service, you will hear that the police are supposed to be given trauma counseling. They are supposed to be getting a whole lot of support from management. But the reality is that we know that our police are stretched, our police are under-resourced, and our police are also not well-trained for some of the responsibilities that they're under. So it is a police force that is under a lot of strain. So it's easy to want to throw the book and just say, no, this must be done, that must be done. But I think there just has to be a holistic look into our policing. And the most important thing here is also the fact that how many cases get prosecuted and how much crime are police actually solving. So I think that this is just the one entry point into a bigger problem that has to be looked at, which is our holistic policing. Yes, you will have portfolio committees, you will have member civil society monitoring police action, but there just has to be a bit more that is done from a government point of view to make sure that we overhaul our policing holistically.
Well, Sbu, thank you. Thank you for unpacking that story for us. Mr. Shoba, I want to bring you to the conversation. Thank you for also being on standby there to be with us here. Still on the Sunday Times, another story there on the front page, top tourism post for official on a 15,000K bail. Right. So there's obviously questions about government's commitment to clean up and transparency in terms of processes, accountability as well. Talk to us about what Moloto is obviously facing and how this really impacts the tourism sector at large.
Yes, it's a story of how our government really does not really deal decisively with corruption. So this is a story about a former municipal official who was placed on suspension and then later resigned because she is accused of having given a tender to her partner. It was a tender to purchase laptops. The municipality spent about 185,000 rands on 8 laptops. It's alleged that after the money was transferred to this company, then some of it was then later transferred to a company owned by this official. Now, the story is that this official, after resigning from this municipality, has now been appointed as CEO of the Northwest Tourism Board. To appoint someone who's facing such allegations does not inspire confidence that the government there in the Northwest is serious about dealing with corruption. But more alarming and more shocking for me, it's the comment from the MEC who is overseeing this tourism board when he was approached by the paper to say, how do you appoint someone who's facing these allegations? And then he say the MEC just says she does not think that the matter is of public interest because the paper must prove to her that the matter is of public interest. And when the reporter says, no, it is of public interest because this person is being paid by state resources, which are taxpayers' money, and then she just says, no, this person can't work for free. It tells you that person is not really serious about fighting corruption. And interestingly, Liesl, when this official worked in that municipality, she was reporting to this particular MEC. So it's someone who's trying to protect a friend who is accused of corruption even giving her such a cushy job of chief financial officer?
Yes, there are questions about whether this is political patronage of sorts or protection of elites. They're definitely coming to the fore. But also just the criteria that was used, of course, in our appointment and the transparency about that, especially because government is trying to clamp up on accountability. What's the recourse? What's also available for civil society, even just people who want to challenge this now?
Yes, people who get appointed to these important positions, these need to be vetted. You can't appoint someone in such an important position, someone who's facing such serious allegations. This matter needs to be taken up. Civil society in the Northwest need to and the opposition need to raise their voices in order for this decision to be reversed. We know that this official is facing an allegation has not been found guilty by the court of law, but it's important that while these investigations are happening, while the trial is ongoing, this person really can't be fit right now to hold such an important position.
Thank you for weighing in on that story, Sbu. Just as we wrap up on the Sunday Times, I want to go, you're in the Eastern Cape, so we're monitoring, what's transpired since the severe weather patterns, the floods, the wake of this, the aftermath, 88 people confirmed dead. That search and, recovery operations continue. Talk to us about the bigger issues now at this time. Beyond the immediate needs, we're looking at infrastructure. We're looking at climate change at large. We're looking at disaster responses. There's a lot that isn't working, but, in disaster, they're always looking for people who are helping, and it seems like people are uniting to assist. What are you observing as we continue to quantify the loss?
Obviously, Lisa, we had a lot of excessive rain over the past week, but to varying degrees in terms of its impact in the various areas. I think in the case of Mthatha and other areas in the former Transkei like Ngobo and all the low-lying areas that are between Mthatha and Ngobo, they're busy with the mop-up operations in those various areas. I think more than anything, what has been said, the fact that you have people who are building in low-lying areas and others building in floodplains. And when you have a disaster like this, those people are obviously going to be caught up in such. And I think the important thing for now is actually, given the fact that, as you rightfully say, we are facing the challenge of climate change and extreme weathers, be it the heat or be it the rain, it is actually prudent on authorities, because more than anything, yes, people will say it is not the government that placed those various communities in those low-lying areas. I think it also talks about the broken system within the institution, because some of these areas are in traditional or in rural parts where you have local councils or traditional councils that should be taking care of that, or actually designating areas where people should build. But it talks to a broken system, even at a lower level, where even as the municipality comes, it only comes at the point of disaster management, trying to react, when actually these people should be prevented from the very beginning, because wisdom has always been there among people. Listen, this is not new.
Sure.
Those areas have been low-lying for decades, for centuries, and people who have lived in those localities for many years have known not to build there. You will find that most of these structures are structures that are not that old. By old, I'll probably say 5 or 10 years. So if people have not seen anything happen in 5 years, they think that it's okay to build, but there is age-old wisdom that would have told them not to build in such areas. But I think then, more than anything, the issue now is it's at a point of mop-up at 90 or 88 people, as you say, is a lot of people to perish as a result of a flood. And I think more than anything, it is, we've seen these floods in KZN, we're seeing them in the Eastern Cape. We are going to see them elsewhere. So I guess it calls for local governments to be proactive, but will those local governments have the capacity to deal with that? I'm not convinced. So I do not have the answers as to what the solution ought to be, Liza, other than to say at a basic level, just awareness has to be created around the dangers of building in such areas. And I think there has to be more proactive responses or action by your response organizations to warn people against such. It becomes difficult when people have already built Lizo.
Well, yeah, absolutely, Sbu. It's just, we're left with more questions than answers, but thank you for speaking to that story. Just as we round up the Sunday Times, of course, we've got our Protea champs there, WTC champions, after beating Australia. But as we move into the next, newspaper, the Sunday World, they're also headlining there, South Africa winning the Test Championship. It was a phenomenal feat as well. And sports enthusiasts, those obviously in favor of long format cricket, are over the moon. But as we move on to other stories, another big headline there. Mr. Shoba, I'm going to bring you back into this. Mokonyane lawyers up to challenge Zondo's report. ANC First Deputy Secretary General says the former Chief Justice's recommendations to criminally prosecute her, they were predetermined and resulted in her prolonged vilification. Okay, so this appeal, this challenge, on what grounds, what sections or findings is she disputing? What legal basis are they going with against the Commission's recommendations or findings? Mr. Shoba, do you want to weigh in there?
Yes, Dr. Mokonyane gave this interview to Sunday World where she spoke about her intention to challenge the Zondo report. Interestingly, Lisa, she doesn't share much. She doesn't say what exactly is she going to challenge, because she says that her lawyers have advised her not to discuss their strategy in the media. So, but she's not the only one who is aggrieved by the findings of that commission. We know that Gwede Mandashe has also gone to court to challenge the findings. Lisa, I think with the ANC National Conference that is upcoming, you're going to see a lot of people trying to clear their names because it counts a lot when you go to a conference, when you go there and say, no, look, my name has been cleared, those findings were set aside by a court of law. It does help people with their campaigns, and I think it could be part of that. It's an attempt to clear her name. We know what happened to other people who appeared before the commission or were mentioned in the commission. You know, the story of Zizi Bodwa, who was charged due to the findings of the Zondo Commission report. So Nombula Mokonyane is saying, if you are not charging me, then you must clear my name. So that is an attempt to say, I want to clear my name, and we know that the ANC National Conference, where new leaders are going to be elected, is only 2 years away.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in the context of that, I mean, we're also trying to ascertain whether it's specific parts or is it the entire report. And if we are challenging, what the Zondo Commission's recommendations are, providing, there's questions about the work of the NPA. I mean, is the presidency responding? Is the NPA responding? Is Parliament responding? What precedence does this also set in the broader context?
Yes, so the charge, the finding against Mokonyane were scathing because the commission had evidence that she received money from a company that conducted business with the state, and at the time she was in government, and that allegation was very serious, and she is saying that this is why she chose not to go to Parliament, because of this allegation, this dark cloud that is hanging over her head. There is very little that we can expect from government, because she's no longer in government. She's an ANC official based at Lutuli House. But it was a very serious allegation that she then sending out a message to say that I am willing to then challenge these allegations. We will see if this message goes to court, what evidence she will bring to counter the allegations against her, and which part of these allegations she is disputing. The allegation that she received money, the allegation that she received groceries from this company. So it will be very interesting to see which part of these findings she is challenging.
Yeah, we definitely need more information. To your point, a lot was said, but not enough at this point. Thank you for weighing in there. I actually want to bring Sbu back into the conversation, because another big story there, just above that, Zille officially joins the Joburg Mayoral race, Sbu, we know local government elections are obviously coming up, but internal party dynamics, Gauteng as a province, the economic hub, Johannesburg. I mean, these are power plays as well. But we're also just looking at, the current DA, its leadership, the coalition leadership as well that's coming to the fore. What's this indicative of as the clock ticks closer to those local government elections?
Look, I think as Shoba rightfully says, there's a lot of political activity that is coming up, be it the regional conferences of the national conference of the various parties. But more importantly, we expect to have a local government election in November, December of next year, Lisa. And I don't think that, of course, it's up to the president to proclaim. I don't think we'll have an election in December. It'll probably be November. Already you will recall that from the last election, there were murmurs and complaints about the last election being in November and the low turnout. But anyway, back to your story. Obviously, the Johannesburg is the crown jewel. So I think Zille has set the cat among the pigeons. And rightfully so. Every political player has a right to contest. And I think that the kind of response and pushback that you are hearing, it tells you that it's making some people uncomfortable in some quarters. And there are those who are praising Helen Zille for how she led Cape Town. And there are also those who are vilifying her for saying that she had neglected most of the poor areas and actually pointing out to the state of those poor areas even today. We've seen a number of court challenges, including court victories actually for communities against attempts to gentrify certain areas and move out poor people. So obviously, Johannesburg has been mismanaged, and mostly by the ANC government. Yes, we've had successive governments in Johannesburg. We've had the DA via Herman Mashaba. We now see the ANC is back in the fold. There was Mpho Phalatse before that. There was the gentleman from Kabelo Kwamanda, right? So we've had this wholesale change and this revolving door of mayorships and administrations. And with each administration, the system breaks even more. So obviously, something needs to be done about Johannesburg. We had the president of this country, whom I believe lives in Joburg, saying that he's shocked at the state of Johannesburg. So if he's shocked, how much more for an ordinary citizen? So I think Helen is within her rights to contest. If she makes up a good offer, I think the people of Joburg are wise enough to decide who is worthy of leading them. If they believe that the current ANC administration is worthy of their votes, they will vote them back. I don't think that anybody should be stopped from contesting. Obviously, we are getting into a very heated political season, and it's going to be interesting. And yes, let the best people raise their hands, and the people of Johannesburg deserve the best leadership. So where as to which party it comes from, the voters will determine.
But Sbu, also to that point, what about the dynamics within the DA itself, the leadership? We're looking at the internal dynamics, the leadership in Gauteng for the DA. Is this going to cause factionalism amongst them? Does her national profile help on a local government level? Even just the approach itself. Was it top-down? Was it imposed? Was it consultations?
Look, I think the impact will be, it can swing either way. Because for one, if a Helen Zille, who is the federal leader and also federal leader of council and also a former mayor of Cape Town, is now saying she's ready to lead Joburg, what that says is that there is no one worthy within the Gauteng or Johannesburg caucus of the DA to lead the DA. That is the message it communicates. But it also says that, could it be that just one person has to have all these leadership qualities that no one else could be able to do? Why is it Helen Zille everywhere? She was Cape Town, she was Western Cape, and now Johannesburg. What does that say about the leadership of Joburg? But I guess for people who are living in Johannesburg who care about traffic lights working and potholes being filled and water being provided, maybe those questions may not be so much of questions. Yes, every party has its dynamics, but I think for the DA, the question they have to answer is that, is there really no one else capable within the DA to be able to lead the city of Joburg or to be their candidate? That it's a Helen Zille who is actually raising her hand. But also the other thing is that Also, we have not had any pronouncement from the leadership of the DA, the broader leadership in terms of that. It's only been Helen saying that she will apply, and I heard her in a radio interview also saying that she wishes that younger people in Joburg also apply. So I guess it will be up to the DA to decide what is in their best interest. But I think that for the people of Johannesburg, they will make choices depending on who they believe best serves their interest and is likely to turn the city around.
Well, the chess moves ensues. I need to wrap up, but I also need to go to the Sunday Tribune very quickly. So, Mr. Shoba, on the Sunday Tribune, we've got a 700 million rand national dialogue budget amid economic challenges. Questions about where this is going to be coming from. Even just the necessity of it. Already these issues contained in the NDP, the National Development Plan. Some also saying that Chapter 9 institutions are already tasked with that. We should just be building on that. Some welcoming it. Talk to us about some of the concerns on the cost front, but also the overall goal at large.
Lisa, the front page stories in the Sunday Tribune, the lead and the national dialogue story. To me, those stories are linked in this manner. The front page, the splash talks about the case of youth unemployment, and then you have the story about the national dialogue, which is supposed to address some of those issues. But unfortunately, the story of the national dialogue is been clouded by this 700 million rand price tag, which we all agree is too much in a country that has had to cut. The Minister of Finance has had to introduce serious cuts in the budget after his proposal for rate increase was challenged. So we're a country with scarce resources. And to spend 700 million rand on a national dialogue, it will really not be in a good spirit because we need money for other things. We need money for job creation. We need money for clinics. We need money for schools. We need money for water, for electricity. So to spend that much money on talking to each other, it's a cost that government is going to struggle to justify. Is there a need for a national dialogue? I would say yes. We need to chart a way forward. We need a conversation as a country about what are we going to do to resolve our problems, and in what manner that conversation then should proceed should be discussed by the people who are going to be involved in this discussion. That we should involve people, the poor people involved, the youth that is unemployed, as the front page story says that more than half of the youth are employed. So how we then get into that conversation is important, but really spending 700 million rand on such a dialogue is something that government is really going to struggle to justify.
All right, Sbu and Mr. Shoba, I'm going to have to leave the conversation there. I know that there are plenty more stories to unpack, but of course we were just unpacking some of those big stories on the newspaper front. Thank you to Sbu Ngalwa as well as, let me just see, Mr. Shoba, of course, Sbongakonke Shoba from the Sowetan, there, the editor joining us. Sbu, in his capacity as Treasurer General of the Africa Editors Forum, weighing in. We'll continue to monitor those stories and look at the developments as they continue.